Oh, wow, it just started recording. I'm Alex Andrews, and I'm here to do this recording with
Kimberly Penny, one of the Directors of Health and Wellness at 9Health Fair.
So we're going to go over for all the fall site leaders for 2019, the Managing Your 9Health Fair. We're going to try to go pretty quickly, but if you want us to slow down, obviously say so. You can type in that little chat portion of Ready Talk, but we want to try to stay to that hour and a half and be good with your time so we're not going over and taking more time into the night. So you can see the quick agenda here. We did introductions. We're going to talk about resources that you guys have as site leaders and reminders, what's new with 9Health this season, what's new with screenings, especially Kimberly will be great at that because she's a nurse, so she's got the medical background to answer all those questions. Reminders right before your fair, for the day of your fair, and then after your fair. So things like, supplies and where do they go, and then your questions at the end. So we're going to go through, again, this is going to be really quick. It's just kind of FYI, as we have a bunch of new staff. So if you're a member, a volunteer member that has been with us for a while, we want you to be aware that there's some new staff people. We have Tista Ghosh, that she's medical doctor, and she is our Vice President of Health Strategies. And then Ellen White is our new CFO. Taylor Roddy is kind of a new programs director, so anything new that we're starting, Taylor's kind of got her fingers on and helping us with. Then there's Kat Lyons. She is our Communications and Marketing Coordinator, and Stephanie is also on that marketing team. She's our Digital Media Manager. Zali is our Client Services Coordinator. Zali is fantastic if you need anybody that speaks other languages. She can speak Spanish, French, and Swahili, and of course English. So she's a great person. If you guys need anything translated, she can help out. Melinda Taylor is actually an oldie and a newie. She's been in several departments at 9Health Fair, and now she's kind of heading up her own department, and she's a data support analyst. Next, we have Karen Garcia. She started last fall, so if you're returning, you may have met Karen last fall. She is helping a lot to manage the medical pieces for fall fairs. She's also helping in Denver North in the spring, and she's managing our diabetes prevention programs. And then Dan Cronin, he helps our fairs down south of the metro area, so Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs, Pueblo. So we're kind of expanding and branching out our staff, as you can see. Okay, and then the last new staff member is Stella Trujillo. She's also been here for about a year now, and she is our new receptionist. She is also bilingual, so she can help you out with Spanish as well. If you need translations, you can send participants and volunteers her way.
Next up is the resource guide. So we are in the process of updating it, and you will receive your 9Health Fair resource guide from your liaison, or it'll be shipped to your site coordinator. You'll want to remove specific pages of your resource guide if you are instructed to do so. So we haven't printed off a completely new resource guide. We did that in January. So if we need to take something out, we will. Optional screening section in the resource guide, it just gives a basic overview of the screening. If you are offering any of the optional screenings, you need to go to our website, to the resource list, and print off those screenings for your volunteers. And you can also email those to them prior to the day of the fair, which I highly recommend. And that's on our website, 9healthfair.org. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to Stacy or I, and also Karen, and we will make sure that you get what you need. And optional screenings in the resource guide will also tell you what supplies are needed based on that screening.
Just one little quick side note on all these resource guides that you guys have accessed before in the resource library. So when you log in now, you may have noticed that there's a fair management system. You can still get to the resource library that way, but we really want to try to transfer everybody to our new volunteer management system. And we have recreated the resource library in that new volunteer management system. So go to volunteer login and still look for the words resource library, and you can find what Kimberly was talking about.
So it is broken into sections, and you can go through that and see for yourself. Monthly, Alex and her team are going to send out nuts and bolts and e-newsletters, which are the essential nuts and bolts of what you need to have a successful fair, and it will have updates, and it will also help you with your timeline and give you reminders of when things are due. There are promotional materials in the resource guide written by our communications marketing department, and if you need additional resources with that, you can contact them. Everyone's information, contact information, is listed in the resource guide, so you'll have that. There are also information for medical resources for the registration educator, and ask a medical question, get a referral, and we'll go into that a little bit later. You have the volunteer management tools, which I highly recommend going through, and then website training videos. It'll include this, and we also did a model fair, and Alex and I did that last year, so feel free to take a look at that, and it'll help you, especially if you're a new coordinator. And you have your lab area, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Any questions on that?
It's really nice too that best practices section is right at the end. That one is helpful because it has a lot of tips on how to speed things up and make things run really smoothly at your fair. So I really like that best practices section too. It just gives lots of nice tips. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the newsletter that Kimberly mentioned. So we've got two different newsletters. The ones that really is targeted for site coordinators, and that's the people listening to this webinar, is Nuts and Bolts. I'm going to be sending that out the third Thursday of July. Tuesday. My apologies. The third Tuesday of July, August, and September. So you'll get that 3 times. For the fairs that are running in September, obviously it's not going to matter so much, that one, but the first 2 are going to have really all the meat of what you guys need to know to run your fall fair. As you can see there are important due dates. So putting in your screenings and stations, that's one that's actually due at the end of this month. So if you haven't done so yet, you've got until next Tuesday to do that, July 31st. And then there's other things such as, ordering banners. If you're a brand new site, you're not going to have to worry about that. But if you're a returning site and you have a beat up banner, then we're going to have due dates like that. Those are just some examples in Nuts and Bolts. There's many questions that are going to be answered in Nuts and Bolts. It informs you of changes that are occurring. So another example of that could be exit surveys. We're going to talk about that later, but there are some changes. So the nuts and bolts is really important because if we do update or change anything, you're going to see it there. And then list of leadership volunteer opportunities. Some of the time we know that you as volunteers that are awesome and do outreach to your community members, we may be able to ask you to help us if we have new volunteer opportunities. And then there's volunteer voices that's accessible from the home page of 9Health Fair. It's not in that resource library like Nuts and Bolts is. And that one goes out, that one is actually the last Thursday of every month. So volunteer voices you can see there. Website help, move forward in the slides for you guys. There's coordinator training videos with documents available that you can see at that link there. So basically if you go to the main 9Health Fair website, click on volunteer, and then training. So when you click on that training button under volunteers, you're going to see a bunch of different extra training videos. These ones are nice, and we didn't embed it in the resource library because if it's outside on the front page of the 9Health Fair website, then you can share it with your Day of the Fair volunteers. We have some medical training that we've done on there. So there's one on Pap smear, for example, there. We have some on online registration and checking in your participants there. So if you want to send those particular trainings to your volunteers ahead of time, then you can send them a link right from the front of our page and they can access that. There's also the resource library that we've mentioned several times. And I would like you to go to that new volunteer management system to get to that now. And then reach out to your liaison. That may be Edith Thompson, Kendra Mitchell, Karen Garcia. I know I have a few fairs this fall as well, so Alex Andrews. Reach out to your liaison if you're not sure where to go for any of these things, and we can point out where you can find them. There's a little bit more on this slide on those training videos, so you can see exactly where to go. Those are the in-depth trainings that I was talking about. I think the last one actually, let me go back for a second. So this particular link that you see there is obsolete now. That's on the old training. We don't have that anymore, so my apologies. The one that I was verbally explaining is this one. You go to 9healthfair.org, volunteer training videos, right? This is the one that you want to focus on. So our apologies, that last slide was incorrect and it pertained to our last volunteer management system, so you won't be able to use that link anymore. Now you can see it explains it here exactly how to get there. And these are the videos that you would share with your Day of the Fair volunteers. There are some training videos that we had in our old resource library, and we're working on getting those uploaded into the new resource library. It was a little trickier with this volunteer management system, but we'll have them there for you. And then we can also send them to you in links. Just reach out to your liaison if there's something particular you remember from last year and you want it again. But hopefully you don't have to do that. We're going to get it done for you. And then you can see archived volunteers. Now you can still see the archived volunteers as a site coordinator in the fair management system, right? That's the old volunteer management system. Now we're going to start referring to it as fair management system. That one you can still see those archived volunteers, but note that you should ignore the imported volunteers. The Day of the Fair volunteers are not going to receive any notifications out of that system anymore. So you may see them as imported, but they're getting nothing. All the automated emails have turned off. So if you want to look at your volunteers, that's fine, but all your volunteer management is going to happen in the new volunteer management system. So you can search for your previous year volunteers from 2018 season. You can save the dates for 2019. You can send a blast to your volunteers. Now it really helps if you get ahead and let them know when your date is. Our registration is going to open up for your volunteers on August 5th. So that's something else you can do in your save the date. Let's tell them August 5th.
So medical volunteer resources, I know sometimes it can be difficult to find all of the resources that you need, but if you have a local community center, clinic, they may want to volunteer at your fair. There are also pharmacists and registered dietitians, optometrists at the Safeways, Albertsons, and Targets.
I think we're on the wrong slide. So the next slide after archived was, I apologize, Beth, was new volunteer management system. So I'm just going to talk about that real quick, and then I believe the next slide of what Kimberly was talking about is volunteers. So sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll redo.
I'm sorry. So the new volunteer management system that I mentioned a couple of times, the direct link to that, you still can go to 9healthfair.org and get to it by clicking on volunteer login. But if you want to go directly there, it's the Galaxy Digital is the company that we've partnered with. It's www.9healthvolunteer.org. And link to the training and slides for this presentation is something that Edith sent out last week to everybody. So if you didn't get that email from Edith Thompson with that training on Galaxy Digital, and it's really a sneak peek into it because 9Health Fair volunteer engagement staff just got access to start playing around and setting up that site to our liking right at the end of June. So the training that I put together for you guys is, as much information as I've gained over the last 3-4 weeks, I was offering it to you so you could get started in there. There's a lot more Galaxy Digital training tools, and there's a help box. So that staff at Galaxy Digital is there to support you guys. Now, volunteers, as it says, will only receive automated messages out of this new volunteer management system. So all of those automated messages that you may have had struggles with in the past, we had lots of different errors and mistakes and rerouting volunteers. That's not going to happen anymore. So all of them are preset in Galaxy Digital, and we have written a language for it, so this is where they'll receive information. And it's really nice. They can receive reminders by text and by email when they sign up for positions at your fair. So we're really excited for you guys to use this.
Okay, medical volunteer resources. First of all, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Karen Garcia is more than happy to help you, or the Health and Wellness team. You will want to reach out to your prior volunteers from 2018, 2017. You can look at the archived volunteers, as Alex said. And you really want to go out into your community and let them know about your 9Health Fair for publicity reasons and to recruit volunteers. Usually when people hear about the 9Health Fair, oh, I can volunteer. So the registered dietitians, there are pharmacists, optometrists at your local clinics, medical clinics, Safeways, King Soopers, Walmart, and you will be able to go to them and just reach out directly. We do have health screening partners, but you will not want to contact those agencies on your own. We will make the connection for you. If you have in the past received a volunteer from, let's say, National Jewish Health, and you have established a relationship with that respiratory therapist or volunteer, you can go ahead and reach out to them. Just don't reach out to the organization directly because they will be inundated with calls and emails and texts. Remember that you want to send reminders to your medical volunteers, and you want to do that the week before, and I would probably do it a few days before, just in case something has happened with their schedules. It can happen, and we also recommend that you send them the protocols ahead of time, and if they have any questions, you can direct them to 9Health Fair. We have a volunteer discount that you can use to share with your volunteers, any of your volunteers, and they will receive 20% off on all of the blood screenings and the colon kits. It's valid for all 9Health Fairs, and we want you to take care of yourselves, just like you were out in the community taking care of others. It's really easy to get your discount. You can go to our website, register online, and get the discount code plugged in, and it's not case sensitive at all. It'll pop up at the end of checkout. Or if you want to go directly to the fair, the cashiers will take the 20% off. You simply tell them that you are a volunteer and they are trained and ready to go with figuring out the math. How do I help my volunteers participate in a fair? If you have a new volunteer, you may want them to attend another fair, and you can send them out to that fair and go with them. Perhaps they can reach out to the site coordinator and get a tour of the fair. If you are offering a pre-draw, blood draw, for your volunteers, you have to guarantee that there will be 50 or more volunteer participants. Because of logistics with Quest Diagnostics, we can't do under 50 people. And you have to coordinate that with client services, Zali or Melody at 9Health Fair. And if you don't know how to get in touch with them, just reach out to your liaison. Or you can open early for your volunteers, and you can also rotate them in and out of the blood lines. Just be sure not to have your volunteers cut in the line with the participants. It might cause a few issues. And just call us with any questions about the blood draw and centrifuge and lab. Feel free to reach out, and we'll go into that a little more detail. We also have a friends and family discount, which is also 20% off. So you can share the code. These participants must register online. They cannot walk up the day of. So share that with your friends, your families, your neighbors, to anyone who has never attended a 9Health Fair. But again, they have to register online. Okay. So this is kind of a dense slide, so I won't read word by word, but
This is helping your site by expanding your volunteer team. You may have found that the more team members that you have helping to plan your 9Health Fair, the more fun it is and the more likely you are to get all the details covered. This is just like being an event planner. So when you plan an event, it's very specific to healthcare and you're doing a huge community service, but it's like planning a large event. So the more people you have helping with the logistics of your event, the better you're going to do. We find a lot of times co-site leaders are really nice because they can split up managing the other coordinators and aspects of the fair instead of one person doing all of it. Publicity coordinators are great. We had at the beginning of 9Health Fair, we had team members like non-medical coordinators and site coordinators trying to do all their typical tasks plus do all the local publicity within a 5-mile radius. So if you can get someone to just focus on the publicity part of it, it's a huge help. Volunteer coordinators and you can split that into medical and non-medical. And these ones are really nice for helping to communicate and place and thank the volunteers with anything you need to do up front or after the fact when you're doing all that kind of nice, warm, and fuzzy stuff after the fact. They're basically like appreciation coordinators and helping with the logistics too. The training coordinators handle the training for screenings and stations the day of the fair. So that person really needs to know the protocol based on where they're training the day of the fair. So if you want to get key volunteers, really volunteers that have helped at a lot of fairs are great for this. So if they have seen a lot of screenings run, they're going to be able to help your medical volunteers know how to run their screening area really well. So it's nice and smooth, well organized, and same for the stations. Those are the non-medical portions. If you've got non-medical volunteers that have come and help out year after year, they're great to ask if they can be a training coordinator the day of your fair. The last one is a food coordinator. So as you know, it can be a little time consuming to go out and ask for donations for breakfast and lunch for your volunteers. So if you have someone that's their only job is to go out and get donations, again, it takes a huge weight off of the rest of the team. So this one is a sign that we created, and it comes in your package of signs that you use on all your screenings and stations. We like to see you guys use it in a couple different places. Wherever your volunteers check in the morning, or the volunteer break room is a really nice area. Some of our sites have decided to make it a little bit more public so participants can see it too. Where I find that it's the most useful is where you have a lot of your Day of the Fair volunteers congregating, because you can get those Day of the Fair volunteers to realize, oh my gosh, it wasn't 9Health Fair staff that planned this. It was volunteers like me, just volunteers that have a huge role in planning the whole event. So this is really an opportunity for you guys to be able to educate your other volunteers on, hey, you want to step up and learn more about volunteering and planning a 9Health Fair event.
So 9Health Fair t-shirts, we have not changed the color. They are still a royal blue. Am I on the right slide?
You are.
You are. Checking. So you'll want to have one person from your leadership take control and ownership over the order for this t-shirt that are additional to your volunteers will be ordered for $5 each. You will not have to pay at the time of your online order. You will receive up to 10 free t-shirts. The catch is you have to have all of those volunteers and they are site leaders listed on the website. But again, you can purchase additional t-shirts for $5. You will be sent the invoice after the fall fair, and if you have any questions about this, you can contact Kendra Mitchell. She's more than happy to help you with this. And again, the t-shirt color has not changed. So vouchers for site leadership. Each team will be given blood screening vouchers. You do not need to request these. You will automatically receive them. You'll get 3 of these vouchers. These are for you to distribute to your site leadership team. And again, if you feel you need more and you have a bigger site leadership team, just reach out to your liaison and we're more than happy to accommodate you. Please, again, reach out to us. staff liaisons will work with client services to do that. The volunteer team will send the vouchers directly to the site coordinator for distribution, and I do believe the grant checks will also be sent at the same time. So again, they're going to work together on that. So next up, we have vouchers for your community. So if you start working with a clinic or local churches, rec centers, to determine if they have participants that might be in need, you want to do this discreetly, and you will be able to get 3 vouchers for this and an additional 15 vouchers. But you must request the vouchers additional to Terry, and her email is listed in the resource guide. And if you want help developing a voucher distribution plan, Virginia has been here for a long time and does a great job coming up with ideas for you in your community, who you can reach out to, how you can get the vouchers out in your community. And you also probably do not want to hand your vouchers out ahead of time, because if that participant doesn't show up, that voucher will not get used, and it could be given out the day of your fair when someone determines that a volunteer or another participant needs that voucher. And again, you'll want to have a medical registration educator at the start of your fair, so they can help answer those questions of which screenings are right. And usually when you're doing that position, you can kind of get a feel for who needs a voucher. Someone may not be ordering blood work, and you can kind of talk through it and see why they're not ordering the blood work. And if it comes to your knowledge that they cannot afford it, please go ahead and give them a voucher. Just do it discreetly and make sure they get what they need, and also provide them education, and make sure that they get the screenings that they need in the optional screening section too, and the basic screening, especially blood pressure.
Yeah, Kimberly's right about not handing the vouchers out ahead of time. Some people do this, and it's not horrible, but we found quite a few sites that will develop kind of a will call. They'll go in and they'll say, I was offered a voucher, and they can say a name or whatnot, and a lot of times we tell those participants, arrive by 10 a.m. in order to redeem and receive your voucher. If they're not there by 10 a.m. or whatever time you designate, then you can hand them out to other participants that come to your fair. So holding on to those vouchers is a great way to ensure that somebody gets it. But if you want to offer it to your community members, you can give them a little slip of paper ahead of time that gives them the details about here's the location, what to say when they come in to receive their voucher, that kind of thing. So you can still spread the word in your community. Okay, so online registration. This is something that is getting more and more common at 9Health Fair. So I'm going to go through the details, but I really, really want to emphasize, make sure you have plenty of volunteers ready at online registration. And we've got some tips and tricks to make this line go a little bit faster and smoother for you guys.
And Alex is the pro at online registration. I actually invite her to my fairs to help out.
And Edith Thompson, I've learned a lot from her. So yes, I definitely feel like I've gotten the knack, and I've learned some tricks and tips from, as I said, Edith and a few others here. So participants should arrive with a 2-page single-sided printout. If you see that they printed their participant and lab copy on one page, then you have to give them an additional copy. The lab is going to keep one of those. We want the participant to retain one because as they go to different screenings, the screeners need to write on that page. It also is like a receipt for them. So we want them to have it for those other screening stations they go to, so height, weight, BMI, blood pressure, etc. So make sure that they're single-sided. They check in at the online registration table, so you guys make sure you have very distinct separate lines for online registration and on-site registration. After your volunteers at online registration check them in and find them on the online registration report, they're going to receive stickers that go to the lab area. So the phlebotomists that draw their blood are going to put those stickers right on the tubes. Don't put anything on the form. We have some volunteers that try to take those stickers and put one on the online registration form. You just give them the stickers and send them straight to the lab.
If you happen to run out of stickers, they can always write on the actual tube itself. It does have a label, so your lab supervisor will be trained in that. So again, hopefully you don't run out of stickers, but if you do, just have them write it on the tube.
Yeah, you'll get a big roll of those stickers. We used to have them all separate out into little stacks that we rubber banded together, but because this particular offering to participants is increasing and more people are taking advantage of it, we're giving you larger numbers of those stickers. So it's going to come in a big roll, a cardboard roll, and you'll see it when you get there, when it comes to you. The online registrants bypass on-site registration, form check, and cashiering, and they proceed to the blood jar area after they get those stickers you mentioned. But the lines typically merge. They go together. So it's really nice if you can get this online registration flowing quickly, because those particular participants are very picky. They want to get to a lab quickly. So have lots of volunteers there and teach them the efficiencies that we're going to share with you. The following volunteers should be trained in the basics of online registration. Obviously, the online registration volunteers, the ambassadors that are wandering around, and other traffic volunteers, the cashiers and lab supervisors as well. So cashiers need to know, and it's for one really single reason, is if your participants in this line want to do what's called an add-on. If they go to this line and they decide, oh, I didn't get a vitamin D, I want to do that, they go straight to the cashier supervisor. They have a special document to do that. So, and then lab supervisors, they need to be trained in it because the forms look different, and they need to be ready to train all their phlebotomists on these different forms and the stickers and what they look like. So that's the basics. There are some great training videos where I explained those training videos were under volunteer. On the front page of the 9Health website, go to volunteer training. There's 2 different online registration videos. I highly recommend you watch those.
I always watch them as a refresher before I go to the day of fairs. And one of the other thing I'd like to jump in on, some people think they can just use their cell phone and pull up the participant form that they filled out online and go through as if it were a boarding pass at the airport. I've seen that at some of the fairs. I had 500 of my 600 participants show up the first day of a 2-day fair. And it was quite overwhelming. So you want to make sure that you have other volunteers that you can pull, and they're already trained for online registration. It was a bit stressful, and it was stressful for the phlebotomist, but we got through it. And what we did is we had several check-in tables, and they all had the complete list of the participants, and we did it A through J, K through P.
Separate them out.
And we separated them out. And when the line was so long and people were waiting, if someone didn't have anyone at their table to check in, they simply raised their hand and said, I can help you. And that really helped with the participants who were waiting patiently or impatiently, and we also handed out water to everyone while they were waiting.
Yeah, that's one of those tricks and tips that you guys can use. You know, you've got to do it well. But I find that one really good way to stock online registration, because as Kimberly was saying, at the beginning of the fair, it's going to be a mad rush. People want to get in, get out, get to breakfast.
And they line up at 6:30 in the morning, which is, we always say, register online, sleep in. But
it's not always the quickest when they come super early at the same time. So what I found, a tip to help you guys, is that if you take your check-out volunteers, they're not busy at the beginning of the fair. Some of those ambassadors that are waiting for participants, so take those checkout volunteers, the ambassadors that aren't busy right at the beginning, pull them into online registration, and they can help keep up that pace. If you take some of those volunteers, give them a clipboard or a binder, some kind of hard surface, and have them go down the online registration line, there's a couple of things that they can do ahead of time. They can witness the forms. They have to do that on both forms. So you'll have the participant sign, and then they witness. They need to be 18 years or older to do that. They can also write in the hours fasting, again, on both forms. And I think the witness is actually only on one form, so I apologize for that. Once they get to that online registration table, those two things are checked off, and it's less for the volunteers to do right at the table. They find them on the list, give them their stickers, send them on their way. So as Kimberly said, there are tricks and tips to split them up, and then there's tricks and tips to get them before they're at the table to make it go a little faster. On this second online registration slide that you're looking at, it says print online registration report from your coordinator dashboard. Now, this is where we still have a divide in the resources for you guys as coordinators. This is still going to be in the fair management system. So we can't move it over right now. We're going to do some more work with our developers, but as of now, you go into the fair management system, and there is a button to download your online registration report. If you're having trouble with this, your liaison can get it for you. So don't panic if you can't get it. The 9Health Fair staff have access to these. But I just want you to know that's still in the fair management system. Online registration will stay open until the minute before your fair closes to the public. So don't worry about that. If you open at 7 a.m., that means it stays on until 6:59, right? And that means your list that your volunteers are looking at may not be totally up to date. That's not a problem. Those two training videos I told you about, they go through what to do if that happens. You add them to your, it's what's called an exception report, and there's more details in those training videos. You can prepare by having extra volunteers, extra online exception reports. That's where you're going to put folks that may not have ended up on your list, and extra online registration forms, page 1 and 2. So the first one is the lab copy. Second one, I believe, is a participant copy. So you're going to have extra copies of both of those. And then as it says at the bottom, watch those training videos. They're very helpful.
And sometimes you will receive a participant that has not filled it out correctly, or they've forgotten it and they can't find proof that they've paid. Make sure you have someone that will help them fill out another form. I had to do that at one of my fairs because they became upset that they had already done this. So if you have a volunteer that could help with that, it rarely happens, but it did happen at my fair. So I highly recommend those videos too. Cashiering, you have to have a lab supervisor, and if you have trouble finding a lab supervisor, just contact Terry at our office. She is...
Cashier supervisor is what she meant.
Yes.
You said lab supervisor.
Oh my gosh.
It's late.
You need a lab supervisor as well.
Yeah.
I made over 100 phone calls today, so please forgive me. So your cashier supervisor. Everyone needs a cashier supervisor, and Terry will also make sure that they are trained and they'll receive everything prior to the fair. Someone will be on call to answer questions if the cashier has questions that day, morning of, say your credit card machine isn't working, or any general question you have. Someone will be here to answer the phone. Statewide sites will receive credit card machines. We started that a few years ago, and it's been quite successful. So just
and you as fall sites may not know what we mean by statewide sites, right? So statewide, when we say that, it means outside of the metro area. I just realized that when you said it. I'm like, yeah, so we, anything outside of the metro area we consider statewide. So if you run in the metro area, we would call you a district, or a metro fair.
And oddly enough, Colorado Springs is statewide. Lyons and Netherland are local.
Yeah, it's funny.
We divide the map up kind of different.
It's a little odd.
So what's new at the fairs? Just as a reminder, the colon cancer screening kits, you'll want to dispose of any kits that you may have held on to, or any kits that will expire within 6 months, because people will wait on doing the test and they'll send it in a year later and it can't be processed. You need to make sure that you write 9HF on the inside tear-off of the yellow return envelope. Quest needs to know that it came from 9Health Fair for processing purposes. So you want to make sure that it's not sealed and that when you open it, it's going to destroy the envelope. Another thing with colon cancer screening kits, you want to make sure you have someone there to educate participants about the colon cancer screening kit. It can be a survivor, a non-medical person, or a medical person. If you have a group of students, nursing students or pharmacy students, they're also really great at going through this. We want to make sure people who need this get it, and if someone walks in and they have no family history, no signs and symptoms, and they're 18 years and older, they probably do not need this screening. If they insist upon it, great. If you run out of colon cancer screening kits the day of your fair, please charge them for it. Take their name, address, and phone number, send that back to 9Health Fair, and we will mail the kits out to them. Before your fair, so you will want to start planning, which hopefully you guys have all started planning. I know that you've done stuff in the website, and we appreciate you getting things in on time. You need to decide what screenings you would like to offer. Even if you think you're going to have a screening, and I always use pap smears as an example, but you don't have someone to do the screening yet, please go ahead and order the pap smear kit. It's easier for us to send the supplies ahead of time than you realize the night before you don't have the pap smear kit. So we really want to make sure and stress that point, because some of you are statewide sites, and we won't be able to get you the pap smear kit the morning of. You'll want to look at the planning section of your resource guide, because it will tell you and walk you through exactly what to do. And if you have any questions, again, just reach out to us. You can invite community clubs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, college clubs, and they can help organize part of your fair. Setup has a lot of different things that you'll need to do. You need to think about where you're putting things, and you'll do that ahead of time, but then you can delegate to the group of volunteers where you need things to go, and hopefully you'll have a map created so they can help with setup. Tear down, I think, is easy breezy. You will be able to tear down your fair probably in less than an hour. It's amazing how much setup takes versus tear down.
Okay, so training and event dates. This is our second new and important webinar, so we're recording this one. We will send out the link and they can see the training in nuts and bolts, but that's it for new and important webinars for fall 2019. As we mentioned earlier, we do have a model fair video, and we can remind people in, again, the nuts and bolts where that's at. People can also review this training to be reminded where things are. The website trainings, really we want people to focus on the training that Edith sent out. I did that particular training for the new volunteer management system. If you log into the fair management system, or the old volunteer management system, I know it's hard to keep all these straight, but if you go to fair management system login and you look under the resource library, you're going to see a bunch of website trainings for the old volunteer management system, which no longer pertains to you guys, right? So I'm going to work on erasing all of those, but if people have access or have downloaded or saved any tools or website trainings that pertain to the old volunteer management system and how to manage and maintain and communicate with your volunteers in that old system, we need to disregard those. We're going to use the new Galaxy Digital platform for all those website trainings, okay? And then packing days, where our packing day is actually coming up in August, and I've got the date right here. It is August 27th. So after August 27th, then we're going to start to disseminate to the fairs that run right in the middle of September and so on. So we will communicate with you guys. The best person to reach out to about when and how you might get your supplies is your liaison. Hopefully we get to you guys before you ask that question, but if you haven't received all your information about when you're going to receive your supplies, it's your liaison. It's a great person to ask. So next, we're going to focus on signage and different ways to publicize your fair location. So we have communicated with you guys about a razor flag. If you got your steps in on time, then we were offering you this razor flag. I believe all the fair sites actually earned a razor flag for this fall, so it's
Good
super
job.
exciting, yes. So you're going to get this 7-foot-tall razor flag. There's a couple of things that I want to point out. This is your property. We want the sites to keep it. If we continue to ship these back and forth, they're going to get damaged. So our hope is that you guys can find someone's basement, garage, if you have a shed of all the things, some kind of storage place where you put all your extra supplies for your fair. This is a long, skinny box. It doesn't take up a lot of square footage. It's just tall. So if you stand it upright, it doesn't take up a ton of space. So it's your property, and then it can be used to show participants where your entrance is or where your parking lot is. It can be used to attract participants to your 9Health Fair ahead of time. These can blow away. It does come with what's called a water bladder. It can fill with water. Some of our sites in the spring had trouble with those not being enough weight. So if you've got extra sandbags, if you've got stakes, the metal crossbars on the bottom do have holes in them. So just like a tent, you can stake it down. So we highly recommend that you do that and secure it. If it's on a grassy area, then you can do that. If it's on concrete, then you're really going to need to put sandbags on top of it to add that extra weight.
And if you don't have sandbags in the morning of, it's really windy, find some big rocks and you can stack the rocks around. That's what I had to do in Boulder. It was very windy.
Mm-hmm. So I find that, we have that issue a little bit more at some of our spring fairs. I'm not sure you guys are going to experience that as much seasonally, but you never know. So just be ready for that.
Hopefully it doesn't snow.
Yeah. And then now we're going to look at some other new signage. We have what are called coming soon signs. Each site will receive 20 coming soon signs to post. And we recommend you put these out the same time you're putting your banner out. We've got a lot of our sites that put their banner out 2 weeks to a month before their fair, depending on how early they receive it from us, and they get those date stickers. And so you can put those around your community, around your actual building to emphasize that it's coming up. And then these signs are the property of 9Health, that 9Health Fair site, so you guys, and they're to be used for that subsequent season. So there's actually nothing on the sign that says that it's just 2019. So you could even save them. They're kind of the quality of, the way I've heard people describe it is like, what am I thinking of, those political signs that people put in their yards. So they may not last, and that's totally okay, but if they do last and you want to use them a following year, you can. The other thing that it says right at the bottom that these signs can be customized. So that's something that you guys would do. If you have like cardstock, a little bit thicker paper, or some kind of different thick kind of board that you would use, and you can tape it on. So I saw some sites that would actually put it along their main street in their town up until about a week before their fair, and then they moved them to around their site and covered the coming soon strip with their actual date. So you guys can customize it to look the way you want it to look. Some people thought, oh, coming soon is a little too ambiguous. Don't just get rid of it. Use it. Use it for how you want it to look and how you want it to say.
Make sure you have permission wherever you're putting the signs up.
Yeah.
And a lot of sites that I've seen as well, they put the arrows to direct participants to their fair.
Yes, that's another good one, because then you're creating another directional sign.
So local publicity is key, as it says on the PowerPoint. You really want to come up with a publicity plan, and you need to have a publicity coordinator. That is highly recommended. It may not be mandatory, but I would highly recommend it because you're doing so many other things and coordinating your team. And it doesn't have to be someone in marketing or communications. It can be someone who has a passion about 9Health Fair and getting the word out. We do have a local publicity checklist on the next slide that you can use, but we'll also be working on the inside here at 9Health Fair to do publicity nudges customized to your fair in emails that will be also sent to your publicity coordinator. beginning 8 weeks before your fair. So again, have someone designated to be your publicity coordinator. Sometimes it may be a student who's in marketing or communications or another program that has interest in this, or someone from a volunteer organization that loves getting the word out. So the publicity nudges are just quick reminders that you are having your fair and what you can focus on for the week that we are on before your fair. So 3 weeks prior has a different message than 8 weeks prior. So we went over the publicity checklist. We highly recommend that you send a list out of all your blood screenings, and we have a new test, hsCRP, and we're also offering blood type. A lot of people want to know their blood type. This is a one-time test, so they will only need to get it one time unless they've had a bone marrow transplant, and that can affect your blood type. So just have some education there and the top of your fair promos, and you can go ahead and put that in your, do they have microsites?
The microsites still, excuse me, they still do exist.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be a little alteration on there because right now they can register as a volunteer right from each separate microsite.
Okay.
So they're going to be redirected, but they're still there.
You can tell who hasn't really been up on the new website. So you'll want to list all of your screenings and any other information about your fair. You customize it, and you can say, again, online registration, sleep in. So you can make it whatever you want to make it. And if you have logos or something from sponsors, I did have to help my sites get those loaded to the microsite. It was a process. So if you have logos of sponsors or partners, you can go ahead and send those to us and we'll upload them. Education organizations are welcome at your fair. You will invite them, and those are called interactive education centers. We also have total wellness zone vendors, and that may be someone who wants to educate people on massage or acupuncture, essential oils. And you will also have sponsors that we may coordinate with you to be at your fair. And there's a whole section on this in the resource guide. So we'll make sure you have all of that. So video creates excitement. People trust 9Health Fair, and they trust you. And if a personal video comes out from you, you can put it on your Facebook page, your Instagram page, you can tweet, all that social media stuff. Apparently, videos are remembered 43% of the time, which is almost half of the population. And we also have the capability of texting. And you will be able to make your own videos the day of your fair as well with Facebook Live. You share your pictures and you tag 9Health Fair, just at 9Health Fair, and we'll be able to share your video and whatever else on our page, which also 9 News helps promote. 9 News will give us media support, but we can't rely on them 100% totally to be the main voice of the publicity, because they have other things that may happen the day of your fair or before your fair, elections, and you know how that goes. A lot of commercials are going to start happening. So if you want to work on a video and you don't know how to do it, reach out to our communications or marketing team or your liaison, and we'll walk you through it. 9Health eTools. So we started a program within the last year, and we added programs that are relevant to the community. And you can see here we have smoking cessation, just general guidelines on staying healthy, heart disease, where we actually have a link, and you can go ahead and drive your participants to this website, and they can plug their numbers in to determine their risk for cardiovascular disease. We also have a new mental health screening for anxiety and depression, and this has been a really great hit for us. A lot of people are taking this, and we are able to connect them with therapists for free using Spark the Change. They have volunteers that are willing to do therapy sessions for those participants who take the anxiety and depression screening. And it's really great because mental health is something that does have a stigma, and this way it's private, and these people will get the help that they need. So please feel free to have information about eTools at your fair. You may want to take a browse on the website and look at it, and it's a really great program, and we're going to be adding to it as soon as we can, many different screenings and health education tips.
Okay, so site grants. You will receive funds based on your participant numbers, and you guys don't need to do anything to get this site grant. You're going to use this money to support your volunteers and purchase items related to running your fair. So, there's all kinds of different things that we found our site coordinators need when they need, extra markers, extra paper for creating flyers. If you need to buy food for the nourishment station, which, you need juice and crackers there. So you can see that it's intended for that as well. We do ask that you guys keep your receipts to reconcile the money that you spent and return those to client services. If you haven't communicated at all with client services and you just give them to your liaison, that's totally fine too. They can always forward anything that you give. If it's physical in person or through email, we can pass it on to client services. Now, there is a $200 minimum, and it's paid directly to the site coordinator. If the grants funds are over $500, or they're $500 or above, the site must receive the funds through an organization. It cannot go to an individual. So there's extra paperwork that's required for that. These are usually our really large sites where they see, 500 to 1,000 participants. So quite a few of our fall fairs run closer to the, 200 to 400 range. So usually you guys are okay, and you don't have to try to work through those details. King Soopers used to provide gift cards for us if you guys received them to help with the nourishment station items. They are no longer a sponsor. They just had some different things they were focusing on with kids. So they were very, proud to be our sponsor, and that ended on good terms. That happened. So what we did was increase everyone's site grants to equal what you would have received in those King Soopers gift cards. So it's still just in one check, but we've just increased the number a little bit. Next is supplies. Excuse me. 9Health for screening and station supplies. The number of screeners and stations determines the supplies that we send to your site. So as we said, you guys need to do that by July 31st. For stations, it's basically just a yes or a no. If you're offering that station, you don't have to put in the number of volunteers you need. But for screenings, it's very important. And as Kimberly alluded to before, it's better to ask for it and get the extra supplies that you need. So really shoot for the moon. Like, if you had your dream and you got all the screeners you wanted, that's what you're going to enter into screenings, because then we're going to send you enough blood pressure cuffs, enough supplies for skin screening, pap, breast, whatever you're doing. We want to make sure you have all the supplies you could possibly dream of, and then just send back what you don't need. 9Health will provide copies of all the basic protocols, so don't print those. We don't want you guys to waste your paper or your ink. We're going to send all the basic protocols. Kimberly also mentioned before that we're going to have all those optional screenings. You're going to go into the resource library and find the full protocol. We're not sending those to sites because you guys are all vary on what you offer for the optional screenings, so that's something that you still will print on your own. Okay, I think that's about it for that.
And if you have a screener that doesn't show up the day of, you can go ahead and pull that down from the website or contact your liaison or someone at 9Health Fair the morning of, and we'll pull it off the website for you. And make sure whoever is at the front of your fair greeting people knows what screenings you have and knows what screenings you've had to cancel because of a screener not showing up or there was an emergency, or if you have to close down that screening because you have 50 people waiting and it's 11 o'clock and your fair ends at noon.
And then the last thing I'll add to supplies is that Quest will deliver all of your lab supplies. and 9Health Fair will deliver all the other supplies. So there's a little distinction there, and you'll get 2 separate deliveries for those.
Yes, so supplies from the lab will include everything you need for the lab. And Melissa Dye or Jerry Bibeau will be reaching out to whoever your lab supervisor is, and they will receive a lab supervisor manual. And we will also make sure that they have the number the morning of that they can call in case there's something going on with the lab. So in the lab area, the supervisor needs to supervise. I know sometimes it's really tempting and you're busy and they can pitch in and draw blood, but they really need to have their eyes and ears on the lab. They can help refill phlebotomy stations when you run out of tubes and you have to unpack another box. They'll be able to know where that is and get it there quickly and efficiently. And another thing, you do not want to advertise if you have a hard stick line, because every participant will want to go to the hard stick line or say they are a hard stick. So just keep that to yourself and don't let the participants hear it. And phlebotomists have to wear gloves when they are actively drawing blood. If they're looking for the vein, it's okay for them to palpate without a glove, but as soon as they start drawing the blood, they have to put gloves on. If they do not cooperate with this, the lab supervisor, site coordinator, medical coordinator will need to dismiss them. It is mandatory that they wear gloves.
And this is something your lab supervisor will be trained on. They'll know this. So if you as site coordinator are panicked with, oh my gosh, I have to remember all that and I'm going to have to dismiss, your lab supervisor is going to know that as well.
I always say, don't worry about lab supervisor or cashiering. They will be
well trained.
Yes. So I already touched on when a screening is changed or canceled. So we will go to the next slide. So we have an online registration form, and you can't really tell here, but you will receive that when the participant comes in.
On site.
And
right?
yes.
Yes.
So you'll need to have these on site because someone will forget, or they'll lose their paper, or they'll print it off double-sided.
Well, these are the ones, sorry, Kiki. They're going to hand these ones out right at the fair. This pretty colorful copy. These are on site, so you guys will get a stack of these in all the forms in all the boxes that you receive from 9Health Fair. So I'll let you keep going, Kiki. These you guys are going to get, and all your people registering on site will get these.
Okay. So we now have new prices for the male testosterone. It increased by $5. We are no longer offering female testosterone. B12 is no longer free, but we did keep the blood chemistry, which is a great deal, at the same price, and other screenings did go up by $5. And if you're also running a spring fair, you may have already learned this information, and the cashiers will be trained about this. So the authorization form, I like to look at this as permission to receive additional education from 9Health Fair throughout the year. We really want to be a partner throughout the year and not just the day of. We can tell them about our existing programs, our eTools, and these are all free or low cost. We haven't charged for any eTool yet. And authorization can be revoked at any time, and we take care of that at the 9Health Fair office. This is not mandatory, and if people are uncomfortable, just let them go and don't try to convince them that they need to sign this form. So make sure your volunteers are trained that this is not mandatory. There's a checkbox on the participant registration form, and it needs to be checked if the participant has read and agreed to signing this form. The participant will retain the original top copy of the form. Form check volunteer takes the other copy, and it will be put in a white envelope that we send to you that will be labeled for those specific forms. At the end, you will give it to the cashier supervisor, and they will be trained to look for this envelope as well.
This is another one that's really good to delegate, you guys. So we've got under volunteer training that I keep mentioning, there is a video. There's a training on this. So if you've got an uber organized volunteer, you've got a friend that you're like, oh, they can keep on top of this in the registration area, that's the person to send that training video to. so that you don't have to worry and stress about it. You find one person that's really organized, and you let them watch that training video and see this form.
And a lot of people will have questions about this. You know, in today's society, security is very important, and they may look at this as if it's, you know, them sharing their information and we're going to share it with others. That is not the case. It's so we can provide education. We do not share any information that they send our way.
Okay, so I think that's just a little bit more. This is about the statewide, so sites outside of the metro area. It was new to our statewide sites this year, so that's why this particular slide is in there. But I am almost positive if you're a returning fall site, you saw this last year.
Yes, that's correct.
We practiced with you guys and tried this out. So there's one more bullet point. The form check station will collect both signed and unsigned forms, right? And there's two different distinct envelopes that we will give you guys. So there'll be one that's marked unsigned and one that's marked signed. So if your volunteers at Form Check can try to keep those organized, fantastic.
The only form that the participant should leave with if they register on site is a copy of that and the yellow copy when they check out. Green copy goes to cashiers, green for money. The white copy, top copy, goes to the lab. So only the yellow sheet. It's really important that we have all of those returned to us. If someone loses their information throughout the fair, go ahead and send that back to us and we'll take care of it.
Okay, there might be one more. For the authorization form online, you guys don't have to worry about online participants. We ask them if they want to participate and receive this extra education right when they're registering online. So you guys don't have to do a thing for them.
So just in case, this is one of my favorite things to address because it's really important. And your lab supervisor, who will not be drawing blood, will be the one who's probably on top of this. And it's really important that you have someone in the lab who knows this procedure. The first thing that will happen is you'll realize that a phlebotomist has pulled out of the vein and typically they stick themselves. That is usually the scenario. Sometimes it may not be, but that is 99.9%. It's the phlebotomist getting stuck after they've drawn the participant's blood. So you'll want to make sure that the phlebotomist washes their hands or whatever has been exposed. You want the participant to stay at the blood draw station in case you didn't get enough blood or any blood, because we have to be able to have their blood to run some tests on. You will want to call the 9Health Fair nurse who's lucky enough to be on call that day. And I would put this number in your cell phone, 303-588-0093, and make sure your lab supervisor has it, your medical coordinator, site coordinator. It's really important. And we will make sure that everything is taken care of. And do not make photocopies of the completed incident reports that you fill out, the biohazard needle stick form, because we will follow up on our end, and due to HIPAA, you're not allowed to keep any participant forms or reach out to them. Even if you know them and they're your neighbor, we'll still follow up with them. You're not allowed to keep their information. So again, we're touching base with Terry. If we have cashiering issues, she will be readily available. If you have online registration issues, you will contact Melody in Client Services, and Zolly's there as well, or you can contact Dane, who's in the IT department. So tips to run a smooth fair. You'll want to assign your volunteers prior to the day of. Again, like online registration, they'll all come in at once, and if you're not organized and don't know or have their assignments and they have never seen the protocol, you're going to have to spend extra time going over that protocol with them, or someone is, your medical trainer, it's a medical protocol, and it takes extra time, and it can be very overwhelming when you're not assigned, because you could come in prepared to do one thing and then all of a sudden you have to do something else that you haven't looked at prior, and that can be very frustrating on both ends. So you will also assign volunteers to be placeholders. So a lot of times people can't stand in line if the line is long, or if they're, they have something like disability, or if they're elderly and they're fasting, they may need to have a seat somewhere else, and someone can be a placeholder and wait in line for them and then get them when it's their turn to have their blood drawn. You will want to write fasting hours in and witness, just like we talked about for online registration. And Alex's tips were just fabulous, so I highly recommend that you follow them. And you will be able to get through it no matter how many people show up at your door at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the fall fairs, you guys start at 8 a.m. So
we love that.
That's a nice little bonus for your volunteers, not having to arrive at 6 a.m. So good for you guys. I think that's nice. You want to do?
Sure. So Quest will come at the end of your fair and go ahead and pick up your supplies. They may show up prior to your fair, an hour prior, and if they do, I don't want you guys to feel rushed. You may need to take extra time because you have to spin the blood or whatever it is. You can send the courier to the break room and invite them for lunch, and they do have to wait. It's just the way it is. So blood specimens will go back with the lab copy of the participant form. Pap smear specimens and the top copy of the Pap requisition will go back, and your Pap smear screener will be trained on this. And any unused Pap supplies will go back with the courier. There's a lab supervisor confidential envelope where a lot of stuff goes into it, and you need to connect the lab and cashier supervisors so that add-on and refund sheets are enclosed in that confidential envelope. It's also where incident reports will go, phlebotomy agreements, and any add-on or refund sheets, as I said earlier. And please make sure those are in. It's very important for cashiering. And again, cashier will retain the lab copy if the participant does not take part in the blood draw. And the green copy, the cashier also keeps of that. So the participant cannot take either of those out. It's only the yellow sheet. You'll want to dispose of your biohazard waste. Usually it's a local clinic or a hospital. They'll be willing to take your biohazard. Just make sure that you prearrange that ahead of time. Centrifuges, statewide sites will follow instructions from Quest, and they'll work with your lab supervisor, site coordinator to figure that out. And metro sites will be picked up by Quest Diagnostics, the centrifuges. Now, also when the courier maybe comes early, they also come in a small car. And you have 20 centrifuges and they can hold 10. 9Health Fair will help you figure out how to get those additional 10 back. If a staff member is at your fair and we have room, our cars are usually pretty loaded down, but if we have room, we will go ahead and take those back with us. And sometimes site leadership has to come back as well, so it's a team effort. Unused lab supplies will go to your redraw contact, and this is for statewide only, so you will have established a place where your participants can go in case we don't get enough blood or the sample was not spun correctly. There are different scenarios. So we contact the participant because we get the report that they have to go back for a redraw. Once your fair closes, you are done with that participant. So if you happen to know them down the street and, again, it's on us, we will go ahead and coordinate that. And we work with the redraw contacts to make that happen, so you do not have to worry about that.
Yeah, the majority of the time that's a Quest Patient Service Center, and you guys, as Kimberly said, you don't have to worry, you don't have to do a thing. But if your participants come back to you because they know you or they remember you from the fair, yeah, you just let them know, call 9Health Fair, and we'll help them get to wherever they need to get their blood redrawn. And
it happens. So within 5 days of your fair, we'll need all of the cashier paperwork, and again, Terry will educate your cashier supervisor on this. Sorry about that. And she does a great job with this. And your screener tally sheets, we need your site name and site number on that sheet. Also, if you are doing adult or children, or both, you need to specify whether or not that tally sheet is for the adult or the child. A lot of times we get tally sheets back, we don't know what screening it was, we don't know what site it's from because they get shoved in different boxes. They go to our warehouse, we don't see them for 6 weeks.
This is a great thing to do during your setup. So when you're setting up each screening and you're putting your tally sheet and the protocol with that screening, then you just go and circle right on the tally sheet paper. You write in your site's name and then you circle. It has it broken out at the top of the tally sheets that we're going to send you. It's going to be in the same packet as all your protocols. It's got adult and children broken out. So just find in the list at the very top which screening it's for, circle it. Because don't rely on your screeners to do it. They'll forget. They'll just sit there and mark how many people they've seen. If they're, normal or further evaluation, they won't remember to circle it. So that's a great thing to do on your setup day.
And one of the other things, we do not need any screening questionnaires returned to us. Go ahead and shred them, or the participant can take them with them. Because most of the time, I find them and they get left at the fair because the screener thinks they need to copy those and keep copies of them, and they don't. They do not come back with the tally sheets. So exit surveys, we recently started exit surveys last fall, and you really need someone outgoing and bubbly to do this at your fair. So they will be out with checkout, and it's a form, and I know we are updating it, so I won't go into details on that, but it'll be sent to you with a box of supplies, and we will send enough, more than enough probably, for you to have at your fair. We really encourage people to give us feedback because it helps us with logistics, process improvements, and we really do want to know. And you can make it a competition at your fair if you have 2 or 3 volunteers to see who collects the most exit surveys.
I have to say this exit surveys we got such rich information to pass back to the site leaders in the spring and last fall, but especially this spring. We really did a good job this spring on it, just home run on the number we got back. And there was so much information that you guys can then use and turn around and provide it to your community members to go, look what we did. These exit surveys showed how happy the participants are with what you guys do for them. There's so much information that shows the value that your participants take from going to your fair. So don't de-emphasize these. These are really important.
And you will probably need someone who's willing to approach people as they're going out the door. And most of the time, these people are more than happy.
Yeah, they're quick.
And what I do is I tell them, it'll help us get the facility back, the volunteers back. Do you like this facility? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but 99.9% of the time, especially if it's a new location or you've had to switch locations, some participants get used to having it in a certain place, in a certain building, and they are resistant to change. But that will also help us to be able to go back to that facility and say, hey, our participants loved it. Will you please host us again next year? But you have to have someone who's willing to approach people.
Yep, they've got to be comfortable doing that. So this is a chance for you. We've got 8 minutes left, and I'm going to make sure we're unmuted.
The conference has been unmuted.
If you've got any questions, you can out loud ask us. I know there were some portions of that we went a little quick. There was a lot of slides like on the authorization form and several different areas. So if you want to ask anything specific, now is the time.
And if you forget and you think of a question later, you can always reach out to us. We are here for you. We appreciate you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you, and you are saving lives. I received an email today from someone who we detected their cancer, and he's in treatment but would like further information from us about this. And it's a real honor to be able to work with these people and help them get to the resources that they need. So,
they wouldn't
and
have that.
Very grateful in his email, and I can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, he wouldn't have had his blood drawn if it weren't for the work that all of you are doing as site coordinators and all the wonderful volunteers that you get to actually do run the screenings in the station. So You guys make a real difference. It's been over 2 million people that have been screened by 9Health Fair in the last 40 years, and it's exciting, the lives that have been touched. So I'm going to just show you guys on the last page some of our sponsors and partners really quick in there. But reach out to, you can always start with your liaison. I know that's the person that you have the most contacts and most regular kind of feedback from. So if there's any questions about this, reach out to your liaison. We are going to be sharing the slides and this recorded presentation with all of the fall sites. We will also put it in nuts and bolts, as I mentioned, so that you guys can go back and review it, share it with your other team members. Thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Alex and Kimberly. That was great.
Oh, good. I know I stumbled there with the lab